So in today's session, we are going to understand how to connect to data source, right? So getting data to Power BI. So we have various options, like, various data connectors. So we are going to understand, like, in brief, what all those connectors are, and also we're going to uh, have a demo for various connectors. Okay. First, we're going to understand, like, what are the different connectors available. So we have an option in Power BI desktop to go to this get data where you see all these options. Okay. So the very first one is all, which categorizes all of the data connectors that it allows us to connect to. Okay. So, and then we have a segregation of each connector. Like, say, there's a file category. So file category, again, we have multiple things, like, we'll just go through the live demonstration so that you'll get a better understanding. Let me open Power BI desktop. So ideally, it all depends upon your project or the area of work. Okay. So that's where you will kind of connect to a few sources, or, sometimes only one source, sometimes multiple sources, depending upon your area of work. Okay. So as we have seen already in the previous demonstration, right? Uh, we have to go to get data, this option, to connect to multiple data sources or any data source, right? This is the very first step that we begin with. When you click on this option, you have to go to more. This is where you see these options. Let us just wait. Yeah. So as you can see, the all will show you each and every connector that it allows us to connect. And then we have something called file. So file has a specific category. Okay. So it is like just like any other file, like Excel file, text file, CSV file, XML, JSON, PDF, Parquet, SharePoint folder. So these are kind of a file. So maybe file located in some area or some place like SharePoint folder. These are all categorized into file. And then we have something called database. Everybody is aware of database, right? So one is like SQL Server database, Access database, SQL Server, Oracle. You can see then the number goes on, right? Any database you can see, like, there's got too many numbers. So it actually connects to, it will be able to connect to various data sources. Like, for example, few of them are recently added. And like I mentioned earlier, right, Power BI listens closely to customers' queries, and it keeps on adding new and, latest connectors to that particular application. When I say application, let's say, let us take an example. Let's say we have some Dreamio software. So it is one of the software. So maybe that customer is maybe a premium customer, and maybe it has requested, Microsoft to come up with some connector, or maybe a lot of users are using this software, and slowly it releases the particular connector. Like, one of the example is Adobe. We also have a connector for Adobe. You can also search like any other connector. You can see Adobe Analytics. So similar to that, any other application, slowly it is integrating these connectors. These are all called as connectors. Okay. So like database, again, we have something called as a fabric. So this is very new. So just 2 months back, this fabric was launched, and definitely it is going to make a lot of noise in the market going forward in next year, especially because it's very initial stage. It is not officially released for, any public, I mean, for the clients to implement, but yes, it is released for testing, and, just like in a preview. So till next, I think November, it will be in the preview stage, and end of the November, it will be launched. So again, fabric is something totally different. It is like, uh, all these data scientists, like, people used to work on Azure, data breaks, or, data factory, like all these different applications, right? Say Azure Synapse and all. So all those are coming into one single platform under one thing called Microsoft Fabric. So you need not worry. There are a lot of other things, right? So you need not worry. You need not know these things to learn Power BI. It's one of the connectors. So the data is available there directly. It allows us to connect to a Power BI dataset. So we have to just click on it, enter the ID and password. That's it. We'll be good to go. So all these connectors, nothing to do with any of the database. It doesn't mean that you need to know SQL Server, you need to know Oracle, or, Adobe, and nothing. Okay. It's just a connector, just like, option that you need to enter your credentials. Okay. Don't worry much on that. So let's go to next one, Power Platform. Power Platform, again, it's some platform where you can see it is kind of a, a platform where we have different set of tools. Like Dataverse is one of the area where the data is stored, and then we have a common data service. Then you have Power BI data flows, and the regular data flows. It's a legacy and other thing. Okay. So again, you must be knowing one thing. Power BI is one of the branch of Power Platform. So Power Platform is a major, it's like a tree where you have multiple branches to it. Like one is Power Apps, one is Power Automate, one is Power BI, right? So one is, there's something called as chatbots, like, Power Virtual Agents. So there are a lot of things. So one of the module is Power BI. Okay. So we'll explain that in a later stage so that you'll get some idea. Okay. So then we have Azure. There are a lot of Azure connectors you can see. Anything we can connect. Basically, Azure Databricks, Azure HD Insights, everything. Okay. And then we have online services. Adobe, Google Analytics, right? Some of them we are aware of it, but a lot of the other tools we might not be aware of it. In fact, I have not connected to all these connectors. I I just connected to very few, right? It doesn't need that everything is to be connected, right? Whatever project or whatever access do you have, you can just test it out. Okay, others, and there again we have other category of tools. Okay, so this is all about get data, and now we're going to demonstrate how to connect it to Excel. Okay, so again, we can go to this more option, and the very first option that you see is Excel workbook. So click on connect. Just like this, you'll be getting, let me go to the desktop. So just like this, you will be able to, get the options for any other data source. Maybe for maybe for SQL Server database, you might see asking for credentials, like what is the server name, what is the ID, what is the like username, and what is the password, right? So those kind of things. Okay. So I'm going to connect basically to one of these Excel. Let me just go to the Excel files. So this is the same Excel that we have used in the previous demonstration. So let me just select this and get the data. So we have already seen this in that previous example, right? So I'm going to take the same Excel file and going to discuss more on these options. Okay. So you might have noticed like this Excel that when we opened, right, it has only 4 sheets. Okay. So right now you are able to see 8, right? So let me just minimize everything and just go back to that particular folder, and let us see what we have in the Excel file, so that we'll get an understanding of what is this exactly here. Okay. So let me just quickly maximize this. So right now we have 3 sheets here: dim category, dim customer, dim product, purchase. But one thing you have to know is basically this particular table is formatted. That's where you see some coloring, right? Some coloring and some alternate colors. So what happens is in an Excel sheet, maybe as most of the people might have known it. Let's say I'm going to create a new table. Let's say serial number, name. So I'm going to say 1. I'll say Akila, and then 2. I'm going to say Sugandha. So I'm going to add some names, right? So basically I've created a table. So now if I keep it as it is and save this file, so I'm going to demonstrate. We'll save this file and close it. So let me again refresh this here. Okay, there's a refresh option so that it refreshes the same sheet because it gets the data whatever. So you might be able to see the extra sheet. Can you see that? Below you can see the extra sheet, right? So basically this extra sheet, when you select this, you can see the data. This is the data that I just entered. But you do not see any extra table here, right? Why is that? Because I've not formatted that as a table. So now I'm going to show you that. Okay. So let us go to this Excel sheet again and select this thing. And there's an option called Control T. So when you select Control T, automatically that Excel allows you to convert this data that you have selected into a table, as you can see. Create table. So and also it is saying my table as headers. Yes, it has got some serial name as headers. Okay. So when I clicked on OK, automatically you can see that some colors have changed. So there is an option to change the colors like this. There's an option. This is the Excel options that we have. So I'm going to keep it some yellow color so that I can also change the name of the table name. So I can keep it like say, I can give it some, student info. This is my table name that I've given it. So now I'm going to close this file. Okay, save it. So I'm going back to my Power BI. I'm going to refresh this. Can you see the new table has come in? It's called student info. So now you might have understood why there are, for example, dim category we already have. So again, the table 1 is again a dim category only. Because it is formatted as a table, you are able to see 2 different things. One is as a sheet, one is as a table. That is the only difference. Okay. So it's always better to go with a table because it's already predefined that, it has got some headers, it has some data, right? Whereas sheet, it doesn't pick it as an header. Although Power BI, once you load it, it automatically converts and identifies the headers. But ideally, it is better to go with the tables. Okay. So I'm going to choose these 4 tables, like if we want, and maybe if you want the additional student table, if I just create it, and then click on load or transform data. So there are 2 options here. Okay. So if I click on load, what happens is automatically the table will be directly loaded and you will be still staying in the Power BI desktop mode. Whereas if you click on transform data, you are going to land into the Power Query editor, which is the second step, right? We have learned all the 6 steps, right? It is going to be the second step that you need to work on, where you will be working on the data and you will be able to see the data to make sure the data that you've got is clean or it has got any issues, right? Null values and all. So if you wanted to go to that particular thing, yes, you can click on transform data. Otherwise, you can click on load. Okay. So while you are building, it's always good. You can click on transform data so that you directly go to the step 2, or else for some reason you are pretty much sure that the data is perfectly all right. You wanted to kickstart your journey, you can click on load. And when you click on load, you can see what happens. It just loads the table and it will show you the underlying, loading process. Like, it will be trying to establish some connection, it will be seeing how much size is this data, or how many records it has. So everything you can see this on the pop-up that you can see right now or not. So however, if you can still go back to that particular option by clicking on transform data on the top. Okay, it's not like once you click on load you cannot go back. No, it's you can always go back. Let's say you can click on transform data on the top directly on this option, or you can click on this drop down as we have, and then click on transform data. Either you can click on the top and either you can click on this first option. So both will take you to the another Power Query editor. You can see there's a pop-up that has come. This is called as a Power Query editor, and you'll be able to work on this again like a step 2 that we have discussed, right? So this is how we connect to Excel as a data source.